The first Berserker Kaizen, an action RPG developed by Neeple or Neopool. I don't know how to say it. I don't want to say nipple, though. They're not going to make me. It's published by Nexon, though. It's allegedly a hardcore action RPG, and it's set in the Dungeon Fighter Online universe. Dungeon Fighter Online has been going since 2005, although we in the West didn't get it until 2015, 10 years in. This is a single-player game. It is a prequel set 800 years before what you can do in Dungeon Fighter Online now, and it's about the first Berserker, of course Kaizen. It's kind of a cool idea, and if it turns out to be, I would guess this will become a franchise pretty quickly. On account, Dungeon Fighter Online has been going for nearly 20 years at this point, has a built-in audience, and a lot of those people also like single-player games, me in particular. I have played Dungeon Fighter Online. I don't ongoingly play Dungeon Fighter Online, but I'm familiar enough that this piques my interest, and also the footage looks pretty sweet. The first Berserker Kaizen is coming to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC on March 27th. However, if you want to play it earlier and without paying any money, a demo is coming out on January 16th, and all the save data is transferable to the full game. I love that companies are doing this, to be frank. It's something that gets me in the door immediately. I am supportive of it. Demo culture was basically gone for a very long time there, and it really provides a good way to get people into your game. The flip side is you have to prove it's a good game, but for consumers, that's obviously great. I'm pretty excited about this one. First Berserker Kaizen looks pretty cool. Split Fiction, a co-op adventure game coming from Hazelight Studios, the creators of It Takes Two, and obviously continuing on the innovations they made with that game. In this one, you take the roles of Mio and Zoe, who are two different writers, a science fiction writer and a fantasy writer, and basically it takes them through an adventure that you could probably figure out exactly what it is. Combines both worlds and makes them have to collaborate. I don't know, actually a pretty good idea for an adventure game. Something else that I think is really cool, you have to play it co-op. Obviously it's a split-screen game, but they're doing something pretty cool here called the Friends Pass. If you want to play the game with a friend and they don't own the game, you can invite them to join the adventure and it all cross-platform. And frankly, that's cool as shit. The game's coming out on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC March 6th. Sid Meier's Civilization VII, the latest 4X extravaganza from Fire Axis Games. Now, I'm not going to say this is like a major departure for Civilization, but they've added quite a few interesting things. First, ages, you have antiquity, exploration, and modern periods. In between each, there's crisis points where you have to decide what elements that you keep from the previous age as you move into the next. I do think that's a pretty cool sounding idea. It also is going to allow you to do some weird alternate history stuff. An example I have seen in the leaders in civilization swapping, like Benjamin Franklin of Revolutionary United States fame, building the Great Wall of China. At the heart of it, though, it's still civilization. If you like previous games, I'm sure you're not going to be particularly out in the cold with what's going on here. But these are some interesting ways of mixing up the formula that I think honestly sound good. They could not be good. I don't know. We'll see. Obviously, great ideas can be executed well, and bad ideas can turn out better than you expect. So we'll have to wait for the pudding to see if the proof is in it. Civilization VII is coming to PC, and when I say PC, I mean Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's coming to the PlayStations, the Xboxes, and Nintendo Switch as well, all on February 11th. Monster Hunter Wilds, I mean, this is going to be a big one. It's kind of hard to avoid Monster Hunter. Now, this is a game that's not necessarily known for its story. It's more known for its gameplay, and it looks like they're advancing a lot of it. I'm very happy with the direction they're taking because Monster Hunter World is a big, sprawling thing. It does a great job at everything that it does, and then they released Monster Hunter Rise a little bit later for Switch, and then ported it to PC. And it has a slightly more vertical approach, and it looks like they're taking these sort of Monster Hunter World base and moving it in the Rise direction. That to me automatically gets me in the door because I really enjoyed Monster Hunter Rise. Specifically Rise. It's not that I didn't enjoy World, I actually love the hell out of World, but it's pretty old at this point. And Monster Hunter Rise, to be frank, looks like it's older than Monster Hunter World because it was designed firstly for Switch. Wilds just looks like a world-defied rise, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying smart things here or not. We got cross-platform 4-player cooperative multiplayer. So, I mean, this is going to be a fun one for you and your buddies, and it will be landing on PS5, Xbox Series, and PC February 28th. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. As you know, the original game has gotten a lot of praise, acclaim for being a very immersive and realistic game. It doesn't look like they're switching direction. In fact, it looks like they're even more leaning into that commitment to realism. I particularly like that they're doing that in the combat mechanics, as opposed to just being like, well, it's more unforgiving and that's more realistic. They're talking about the swordplay being much more fluid. They're talking about refining the archery system. As a byproduct, they might be a little less forgiving, but the idea is to make them more realistic as opposed to just harder. I don't know. Some developers seem to have this weird belief that harder equals more realistic, and that's definitely not true. We'll see if it ends up being harder. I don't know, this one's actually got 2 distinct maps, so the world is quite a bit bigger, in fact, nearly double because both maps are apparently roughly the size of the original single map. I don't know. In a lot of ways, it really seems like this is a large upgrade from the first game. If you enjoyed the first game, I'm sure it's going to be worth playing when it comes to PS5, Xbox Series, and PC February 4th. Killing Floor 3, the latest installment in the co-op first-person shooter series. This one actually takes a pretty jump where Killing Floor 1 and 2 are set in the near future. This one jumps to 2091. The reason for that is to plop you into a more dystopian, crazier world where Horzine is more powerful, and the Zeds are much more advanced. I think from a gameplay perspective, it's probably a good idea because it gives them a lot of excuses to go full maximalist in everything. It's a bit of a new direction, although it doesn't look supremely different from Killing Floor 1 and 2. They're touting new enemy AI in this game, which I think is good. I just love that we've gone back to talking about how good enemy AI is. Now, it's probably a result of all the AI hype, but if that gives us good NPC/enemy AI in games, I'm all for it. I don't care why. I just care that it's happening. But here's some good news for everybody who's got buddies with different consoles or platforms. Avowed, a first-person RPG coming to us from Obsidian, taking place in the Pillars of Eternity universe. I'll go ahead and say this. I'm just basically completely excited at the prospect of the people who were in charge of New Vegas making a game that looks somewhat like Skyrim. Not necessarily entirely, obviously. There's a lot of specifics to Pillars of Eternity that I'm sure will set it apart. And it's also not just a full-on open-world game. I think it's more of an open zone game. I don't know how, but Sonic Frontiers actually managed to make it so people say open zone. But I guess it's actually a decent description of what it is. They're not levels, but it's not an open world. An open level doesn't sound right. Level implies a certain amount of linearity, so I don't know why I'm getting hung up on this. Avowed looks great. It's Obsidian doing this type of a game. There's factional stuff that we know is going on, and allegedly you're going to have the same kinds of meaningful choices that you might expect from New Vegas. And again, if you like Skyrim, look at the game. There are things here that will appeal to you. This is a game that I'm pretty excited for. Although I'll say it's very easy for me to get confused with certain other games that kind of have this aesthetic and they all didn't do that great. So I'm really going to be trying to wipe the slate clean as I go into Avowed because it's done by people who've made this type of game very well in the past, as opposed to a lot of the other games that have kind of looked like this, but they're really just somebody trying to make a game that either cashes in on the aesthetic or ideas of Skyrim. This goes way further than that. Avowed's coming February 18th to Xbox Series and PC, along with Day 1 access on Game Pass. Definitely a must-play for me. Atomfall, a single-player survival action game by Rebellion Developments. This one's set in alternate history, 1960s Britain, where things went awry following the 1957 Windscale nuclear disaster. A real event, but also the point of divergence for the alternate history of the game. It's 5 years later, you're a lone survivor, and you're in a quarantined zone. That setup might give you Stalker vibes, but it's a little more oriented towards the sort of crafting and survival elements. It's not like a sandbox per se, it's a little more narrative-driven, at least from the looks. I could be wrong. The combat looks fairly even-handed between melee and ranged, and looks nothing like Stalker. Like I said, the setup's kind of similar sounding, but the game doesn't look particularly similar. Atomfall is going to land on the PlayStations, the Xboxes, PC, and Xbox Game Pass on March 27th. Assetto Corsa Evo, you might be aware of the beloved racing simulator. It's a franchise that's been going on a while. This is the open world one. The map they've created for this one is supposedly over 600 square miles. Takes place in Nürburgring. It's real-world terrain, supposedly. I don't know if it's 600 square miles of Nürburgring that are specifically recreated, or if it's areas that have been combined into a map. I don't know that. I do know that the developers have a proprietary engine that they have been working on. This game is going to have a day-night cycle, dynamic weather, and apparently advanced vehicle physics. Now, as you know, vehicle physics are kind of lackluster in racing games as a whole now, whether that's arcade or simulation. So I'm interested to see exactly what they mean by enhanced vehicle physics. This one's going to have VR support as well, which I think is a good thing. Assetto Corsa Evo is coming to PC via early access, at least at first. It is going to land on PS5 and Xbox Series later, but January 16th is where you're going to see it pop up on Steam for your purchase. Assassin's Creed Shadows, the 14th major installment of the storied series. Let's be clear, there are some that are better than others. This game is stirring up a little bit of controversy, but if you look into what they're actually trying to do with it, I'm interested in the outcome more than the speculation. Obviously, it could be a big heaping pile of dog shit we don't know. But Ubisoft has been saying they're leaning towards the more traditional Assassin's Creed style gameplay, which is kind of what I want to see in Assassin's Creed at this point. I like the open world stuff. I've made it clear that I think both of the types of Assassin's Creed games are good. I like the old school kind just a little better, but I'm also kind of hesitant to lose the open world stuff completely. And this seems like it's very in line with what I want from an Assassin's Creed. I mean, Ubisoft just kind of painted it like a bridge between old school and new school, leaning a little bit closer to old school. I think Mirage is probably a pretty good precursor as to what exactly they're doing here. You got more stealth, more assassination, more parkour focus. They're saying that the story missions are going to be a little more linear and focused, while at the same time putting you on a already big map. You got Kyoto, Osaka, Iga. You got lots going on. Like I said, they've been describing it basically as what I want from Assassin's Creed at this point. So despite whatever arguments people are having about it, it has the potential to be a good game. Now again, I will say that doesn't mean it's going to be a good game. However, I have some hopes for it, and I will definitely be playing it. Assassin's Creed Shadows is coming out February 14th, Valentine's Day. It's going to be PlayStation 5, Xbox, PC, and iPad.